Welcoming you to a life of awareness, the Presence Project is excited for you to join us for today's podcast with your host, Paul Kerzner.
Hello and welcome to episode 53 of Are You Being Present? My name is Paul Kerzner. I want to welcome you to the present moment. I want to welcome you to the here and now. And I want to thank you wholeheartedly, sincerely, and deeply for joining me in this amazing present moment. The title and topic of this podcast is Planning for the Future with Presence. And I decided to speak on this because often I get asked, well, how can I be present when I have all these things in the future that I want to have happen, or I need to plan or project, personally or professionally or both? And I think it's really relevant for all of us who are living in this modern age. We're always looking to plan. We want to have certain outcomes. And the challenge is to be able to plan for the future while being present. And I can fully and wholeheartedly understand why that would be such a challenge. Because, how can you plan for the future and also stay grounded in the moment? That provides some wonderful opportunities, because if you start observing yourself while you're planning, while you're creating plans for the future, you'll find that you start slipping out and you get something like a destination addiction, where you start making these plans and you think that wherever you're going to be is better or more exciting than where you are. But that's a misnomer. That's not a truth. And what that does is take you out of your moment, making you think that there's another moment that's going to be better than the one that's unfolding in front of your face. But the truth is that the moment that's unfolding in front of your face is amazing, and it's all a perception. So how do we go about planning for the future with presence? Well, the first thing is to be observant. You have to watch your mind. You have to watch that ego thought stream, because it knows you better than you know yourself. So as soon as you start to lay out these plans, whether it's for a vacation or you're at work and you have to make some financial planning, whatever it is. I mean, there's so many different examples of future planning. You have to really watch your mindset in those moments, because it is possible to plan for the future while being present. And the first suggestion I have is being intentional instead of being expectational. And these are two different perceptions. And it's really important to understand both of them, because one will allow for presence and the other will continually take you out of the present moment. So we'll start with the latter first. Expectations are a tremendous presence obstruction. And what I mean by that is the more expectations you have for yourself or for, a person, place, or thing, the more suffering, self-inflicted suffering that's going to be levied onto you. Because, life rarely meets up to our expectations. Expectations are very finite, they're very rigid, they're very specific. And as we all know, life is dynamic. There's a lot of different shades of colors of gray. And very rarely do the expectations that we set for ourselves actually match up to what takes place in reality. So if you're future planning and you find yourself creating all these expectations for how these things are going to play out, you're creating a tremendous amount of self-inflicted suffering for yourself, because it's not going to unfold the way that you expect. And therefore, you're going to get frustrated, you're going to get upset, you're going to get disappointed. And what does that serve? That serves your ego. So your ego is going to be definitely enmeshed, and it likes it when you're creating all these expectations for yourself for the future. But the future it just hasn't happened yet. And so if you're going to create expectations for your future, that's going to be a really tough road. And we have to learn how to let go of that. And that's a process by itself, because, I believe from what I've seen professionally and personally, that we've been almost trained to create a future or future planning with expectations. So say that you're planning for a trip, and you have all these expectations for how it's going to play out. Well, first of all, how many times have we sat on the runway? How many times have we been, late for a flight, or a flight hasn't taken off on time, or we missed a connection, or the hotel that we got to, something was wrong or the room wasn't ready, or whatever it is. I mean, there's so many different possibilities that can take place in a trip. And, that's only one example of future planning. There's also financial planning. When we create these plans for ourselves, either personally or for our business or whatever, and the money's not there, or the money has to get reallocated, but we had these expectations for how we were going to use the money. Again, more suffering, more self-inflicted suffering. And it's very difficult to be present when all these things are playing out. And it just keeps us in a loop, because immediately we get stressed out. Sometimes we get frustrated, angry, whatever. We release cortisol, we become inflamed, and then we're just stuck in a skip. And our ego loves it, thrives in those moments. And it's really unhelpful for me, for you, if we're doing our best to be present, because we have to pull ourselves back from that thought stream, from those emotions, from that feeling space, and ground out. And that can be kind of difficult when everything's already in motion, when everything's in play. So, what do we do about that? Well, first of all, really look if you're having expectations, okay? Because that's just going to create a very negative, sharp environment. Planning for yourself. That's the observation, for you to be able to first see how that's playing out. And if your plans go into motion, you can start observing yourself, reinforcing the expectations. And then when things don't match up, how frustrated you're getting, or whatever the emotion is that follows that. That's where intention comes in. And if you can plan with intention instead of expectation, that allows for presence. Because what that means is that, I intentionally would like these things to happen. And at first this might be difficult, but since presence is a process, this is going to be a process as well, is to say, I intend for these things to happen, but if they don't play out the way that I intend, then I can pivot. And, it has been my observation that the most successful people in life, and when I say success, I don't mean just rich or wealthy. I mean happy, present, actualized, fulfilled. And that's financially, but that's in relationships, that's every facet of life. So the most successful people that I've observed have the ability to pivot in any given moment. They are able to adapt and evolve, and they're able to do that freely without creating more suffering for themselves. It's a beautiful thing. It takes a lot of practice for sure, and it takes a lot of presence first and foremost. So planning for the future with intention will allow you to pivot. And also, when you get put into a situation, you're going to be able to stay in the moment itself. You're going to be able to see it with clarity and then make other decisions. And if those decisions don't work out and you're still doing it intentionally, then you could pivot again. It's a beautiful thing. There could be countless pivots until you're able to actualize whatever it is that you really desire. But you didn't create that self-inflicted suffering or that rigidity for yourself that's done through expectation. Now, I understand that if you've lived your whole life creating future plans with expectation, that it might be a little difficult to untwine that. But I feel that there's a lot of value with me speaking on this topic and presenting it to you, because in life, we're always given more opportunities to learn our lessons. And if we can look at each future plan as an opportunity to change, to shift, to grow, and we can start using intention instead of expectation, or if we could just be observant that a lot of the planning that we create for ourselves is done with expectation, that gives us the opportunity again to be present and to reframe it. Because, why do you want to create a future space for yourself that's going to be filled with suffering? You don't. My intention for this podcast is to give you the opportunity to really take a step back, to look at how you're operating when you're planning for the future in every different facet. Because if you want your present moments to be easier, if you want to make the edges in your life smoother, it is imperative that you wrap your head around living more intentionally and letting go of the expectations that you've set for yourself and any future plans that you have, that you've created, that are coming up. And, I mention this a lot in clinic with my patients. It's something that I observe with myself because, sometimes it's easy to want to set up these expectations for how things are, for how things are going to be. But, time and time again, I've seen for myself that all it does is create frustration, creates anxiety, creates stress. And I don't want to do that to myself. I don't want to do that for myself. And once I was able to transition from creating future plans with expectation toward creating future plans with presence and intention, all of a sudden things got so much lighter for me. So if I entered into that future moment, and that became my present moment, and things didn't go exactly how I intended, I was able to pivot. I was able to evolve and shift. And, whether it was the second pivot or the third, whatever it was, it started working out for me. And it felt so much better. It felt so much easier and so much lighter. Oh, to live a life without creating self-inflicted suffering is such a blessing. And that is what I wish for you. It's what I wish for the people that I sit in front of, that I serve, that are my patients. It's something that I wish for myself. It's something I wish for all of humanity. Is if we could just reduce the amount of self-inflicted suffering, life inherently is so much easier. It's so much more abundant, so much more plentiful. So the question I have for you is, are you living with expectations? Are you creating future plans and having expectations with those plans? It's not a matter of being right or wrong, okay? The only part of you that wants to look at right or wrong is your ego. Things just are. So whatever happened up until this point, however you were living your life, let's just let that go. Let's be easy with ourselves. Let's be present, okay? Let's be in the moment. And I'm not saying that we need to live frivolously. I'm not saying that you have to be irresponsible about the future. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we can have a beautiful present moment, that we can plan for the future with presence and intention, and things will get lighter and easier and smoother without question. And I could tell you that with pretty much 100% certainty, because I've had the great honor of sitting in front of a lot of people and helping them shift their perceptions, helping them shift the way that they plan. And it's always been a reflection point for me, for me to be able to see how I'm planning, and for me to be able to monitor my perceptions and make sure that I'm able to let go of having expectations, and also to make sure that I'm being gentle with myself when I'm being observant, because I don't want my ego to get involved and then I'm hard on myself, and there's a cascading effect there. And so then I have to use all my presence tools to untwine that and ground myself out. And that's just not necessary. I don't want to create self-inflicted suffering for myself. And so I'm really observant of my perceptions and the way I'm navigating my reality. So I hope that this podcast has been relevant to everyone listening, and I can't imagine it wouldn't be, because so it's a part of life. Planning for the future is a part of life, and really, if we could just know the difference between expectation and intention, and we can plan with intention, and we could be easy with how things unfold with intention. Oh, how your life, your plans, your travels, your business, everything will just smooth out, and you won't be making it hard for yourself. You won't be making it harder for yourself unnecessarily. You won't allow your ego to get involved there and create more suffering for you, because you're being intentional, because you're being easy with it. I just don't think I need to go any deeper in that. I feel like what I've said, what I've just shared, has enough power to help you shift and allow you to create and look into the future while being present and feel good about it. So I want to thank you. I want to thank everyone for listening to this podcast and all the podcasts preceding it. It has always been my hope and my intention to provide relevant information that can make your life, your reality, easier. Now, I understand that what some people are going through right now is not easy per se, and that's okay. because it's not going to last. Remember, nothing lasts. And that's reassuring, because if you're really being present, that's the mantra. This isn't going to last. And we're okay with that. So again, I thank you sincerely for listening. And I thank you for joining me in this amazing present moment.
Thank you for listening to the Are You Being Present podcast, brought to you by the Presence Projects. Remember, you have a choice. Choose to be present.